James Nunn. I'm the senior physicist at Lewis Gale Regional Cancer Center, Pulaski. And this is going to be sort of my experience with myQA, and a couple of caveats for this. As far as clinical experience or experience in the clinic with myQA, we were fortunate enough to help IBA and do beta testing for this and early version testing of this. So I've actually was waiting until after this webinar to install the brand new clinical version. So having said that, we have a lot of IBA equipment. We have Blue Phantom, Blue 2, Star Trek, Matrix, OmniPro Advanced, OmniPro Accept, OmniPro IMRT. So we've used this software for quite a long time. We've been a Star Trek user since 2010. I think is when we purchased that, and we sort of we had two LINACs. We had two separate QA devices that we were using for the LINAC, and we saw that Star Trek. We liked the way it worked. We liked the software. In older versions of IBA software, you had a separate software application for each program. So you had a copy of Accept, you had a copy of IMRT Plus, and you had a copy of Advanced, or at least at our place. And each one of these are usually on a separate system. Not a lot of data communication between the two. Typically whatever laptop runs your water tank sits until you use it once a year. Your OmniPro IMRT is used, sometimes every other day, and your Advanced is used every other morning or every morning. The myQA combines all of the IBA softwares into one unified platform, so you can have everything available in one nice program. So you've got your Accept, your IMRT Plus, and your Advanced, which have all been sort of folded into this one nice software package. Data, as Andrew had mentioned, is stored on an SQL database server, either local or remote. If you're a small shop, you've only got one LINAC and it's just one physicist, you can install SQL Express on a laptop and run it, at the same time you're running myQA. No issues with that. We went a little further with our testing. I tried this. We did testing with the SQL server installed on local machines, on desktops, laptops, and then finally our last place we tried was installed on a virtual Windows 2008 server. We installed SQL on a box that doesn't even exist except as a virtual machine. And, we found no database connection issues. Everything we tried connected up, and, you're able to access your data, you're able to access your devices, and it works really nicely. And then, of course, with the new software, you have the cockpit, which sort of allows you to look at all of your QA at any given time. You can take a snapshot. You can track the progress of things, see where you are with your, are you done with your monthly yet? Are all your annual tasks completed? And you can do this across multiple departments or multiple facilities. So this is a really scalable piece of software. It's beneficial, I think, to a solo physicist at a small clinic, and I think this would be easily expandable to enterprise size solution where you have, maybe 7 different departments across 7 different campuses. So on here, you've got your user setup. This is a little different than the older versions of the OmniPro softwares, where you can set up different groups of people. You can assign certain permissions to different groups of folks, and then you, of course, assign individual users their own logins with this, and you can determine which level of access each one of these users or groups has, whether you can run a test, finish a test, skip it, whether you can approve things, so you can really segregate out what people have what privileges inside the software. So you can restrict an entire only physics to be able to run OmniPro Accept or OmniPro IMRT Plus, or any way you want to set this up. So Andrew has spoken about the machine QA using myQA, but as I like to do, I like to squeeze every last drop out of a piece of software that we can do with it. What else can you do with it? Where can this be used other than just your machine QA? And this is a full QA solution, I think, and it has the potential to go really far. So, your department is more than just your Linux. You have all manner of other things that have to be QA'd. Your TPS, where are you going to store this? How are you going to trend this? Your CT SIM QA. We've got TG66 that uses phantoms. We've got dose measurements that have to be made, monthly and annual tests daily. Acceptance testing of a LINAC. That's one that most people don't think of very often, only when you get a new machine. But if you could track the acceptance testing of your machine in myQA, you would have access to that baseline data for every measurement that you would have following acceptance tests. That's really good information. We like to benchmark everything back to our acceptance test when we first had the machine installed. Your HDR QA, you can put your QA in there. You could create a template for all of your required HDR QA, your LDR QA, anything you do with that, ultrasound QA, and have this in a nice trackable, trendable software platform that could aid you with your regulatory inspections. You can set your inspector down and say, look, here's our calibrations of our sources that we've done. Here's the documentation for that, and it's all in one nice place. And then you've got pretty much any other quality assurance item in your department that you want to run. We have a morning QA protocol that we run that you test the machine and you do other things with it. But what about the end of day? We have an end of day checklist that our therapists go through that, did they clean the room, restock the linens, is everything ready for the next morning? You can have those non-physics related but yet sort of related to your machine tests fully qualified and trackable in your system. So it can be used for a whole lot more than just machine QA. So as an example, this is an early version of a CT Sim QA template that I built, and it follows roughly the TG66 protocol. These are really easy to follow. I've done a lot of tests where I've just sort of given the therapist this piece of software and said, all right, run through this and see how it works, see where there's any complications. And so you can use the imaging plugins for your Phantom study for your TG66 QA. So you want to run your CAT fan as opposed to your Philips or your GE Phantom. You can have the software automatically do that with the plugins. And there is the possibility to extend your diagnostic imaging tools in your procedures. So you can, at some point, I think they're going to interface this with the Magic Max or other electrometers for measuring your CTDIs. And so you can set up these nice daily, monthly, annual QA procedures for your CT Sim. And then, if you want to go more than that, this is a snippet of the photon depth ionization test as taken from the Clinac customer acceptance procedure. I went through just for funsies, I guess, and took the entire Clinac customer acceptance procedure and converted that into a template in myQA. So you could quite literally do your entire photon or your entire machine acceptance procedure according to your manufacturer's protocol inside this piece of software and have it documented. And, sort of further with that, when you do your imaging tests, you can import your CAT fan and have that data available for baseline. But like right here, you can see that you can pick and choose. You can delete the ones you don't have or add ones that may be available to you. You should be able to, when the accept modules are added in, you should be able to actually pull this data straight from your profiles, rather than hunting around trying to find this in the software. In theory, you would be able to open this PDD straight from OmniPro Accept, pull this data from it, and have it available for future use for testing the next year or any other trending that you'd want to do with it. So, it's really, really nice because you can go from very, very simple protocols, just something as simple as a small checklist, all the way up to, full acceptance of your machine. And it keeps everything in a nice trackable format that you can refer back to. Our SQL database, because it's on a nice virtual server, gets backed up every evening by our IS department, and so that data is secure, and so we're not really concerned with loss of data. I can transfer some of these profiles. If you're measuring your high-X photon flatness and symmetry with your 10 by 10, you could possibly transfer that data to your myQA machines and use that for your monthly tests, or use it for your morning QA and sort of keep track of it that way, where you're always comparing it against your baseline measurement.